One of the best features of this camera is the EV control, exposure value control. This is +1. This would be considered normal or 0. And again, this is something that you can control, even though everything else might be automatic. And this would be considered -1, all under your total control. Of course, why have a three-dimensional camera, a 3D camera, without close-up? Close-up adds drama to the scene. But with this particular camera, you've got to be very careful not to get too close. My suggestion is no closer than 5 feet away. Of course, with a 3D camera, it's all about depth. Notice this wide-angle shot, and notice on your left, the foliage on your left, it adds depth. The problem then is with telephoto shots. They tend to be flatter. And, of course, the 3D effect is not as dramatic. Don't you think? Here's another example where a wide-angle shot with the foliage on the right-hand side of the scene, it adds depth to the scene. And the 3D effect is very apparent. But here, when you go to the telephoto, the 3D effect is not as, shall we say, effective. Of course, nothing beats experimentation. Once you have your camera, you will experiment with your camera to find out what angles are best for shooting in 3D. Some angles are better than others. And you'll also find, because it does not have an image stabilizer, you'll almost always want to use a tripod if you don't want to have shaky footage. And you'll also discover, I think, that putting something in the foreground, as this plant on the right-hand side, adds more depth to your scene. Something else too. When you narrate your video, you will want to make sure that there are no sounds like television in the background, because it's irritating and not good. And in time, you'll also develop your own favorite subject matter. I like dramatic scenes in 3D, like this very strong tree in an otherwise wooded area. Earlier, I mentioned that you will have very little control on the focusing on this particular camera. It is, after all, a point-and-shoot 3D camera, and perhaps the least expensive of all the point-and-shoot 3D cameras. But that does not mean that you cannot be creative. You do have creative control, as you do with the exposure value. You control the exposure, and you can be very dramatic just using that one feature. How you use this camera, of course, is a matter of personal choice. Some people will use this camera as a creative art form. Some people will use this camera as therapy. After all, to me, photography is the best therapy, or one of the best therapies you'll ever find. Of course, some people will use it as a diversion, to take their minds off their daily grind, their daily problems. And they grab a camera, and in that camera they'll find solace. They will create what they think are beautiful scenes. And even though the camera is limited, you can still use the camera to do creative scenes. For example, here it's selective focus. Your foreground is distorted. No matter what you use this camera for, I think it's a fun camera. Limited features, but a fun camera nonetheless. Send me your suggestions and, of course, your questions in the comment section of this video. and I'll answer them in the comments section so everyone will have the benefit of your observations. Thank you very much.